guys are working for 2 days and then going for another conference, although I think the TikTok vote's supposed to be Wednesday. But before we get to that, you and Gunny Borelli, two of the best vets I know, are really worked up about this DEI in the military, and particularly not just at the head where you got all these horrible generals we made and flag officers who are totally woke, and not just the field grade officers, but how it's now down into the whole system. Walk me through the specific case and how this teaches us lessons about the broader currents that are going through our military today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Steve. So a couple, maybe about a month ago, Sonny Borelli, who's going to join us in a second, and Colonel Wendy Rogers, both state senators from Arizona, read me into a case of a young private named Private Maranon, who's down in South Carolina, who's being held over, and they're trying to basically process him out at a training command. And so they asked me to go down there. I went down there. I was able to interview the private. I was able to interview 4 of his peers, and then I interviewed the colonel down there and also the general in the chain of command. And then I interviewed the private one more time before I left. And what I found was that it seems to me like the thing that this private is guilty of is being a patriot, a conservative Christian who's opinionated, whose worldview doesn't align with the woke DEI saturated worldview of the armed services. You know, I looked through this case, Steve. Basically, they're trying to make this kid out to be a white supremacist, racist. He's not even white. He's from Peru. He's an immigrant who just wanted to serve his country. Now, what I can tell you about him, Steve, is he does stand out a little bit. He's an older private. I think he's about 32, 33 years old. He's married. He has a kid. He wanted to serve his country. And he's the type of young man that he has a little bit more maturity. So when he sees some of the nonsense, he doesn't keep his mouth shut about it. He'll say something about it. And I think that's his biggest crime. But the Army's trying to process him out. When I looked through the packet and the accusations against him, it was interesting, Steve, because many of the accusations that I read all had the same date and timestamp on it. I think it was 6:40, p.m. The day right before graduation, the day before he was going to walk the line and graduate. It was family day. His mom was flying in from Peru. His wife was flying in from Vegas. The kid didn't even know he wasn't going to graduate. And, when I looked through a lot of, that smelled of a railroad job to me. And after talking to the kid, I know Sonny's talked to him, and many other retired, colonels and veterans have talked to this young man. We see somebody that could be an asset to the military, somebody that could be an asset to the Army. But like I said, is victim to armed forces that has become woke and saturated in DEI.
Gunny Borelli, tell us about your involvement in this. What are your thoughts on this situation?
Well, I first met this man, a year ago before he even joined the Army. And, he's from Lake Havasu, so he's my constituent. So he reached out to me in November because this started like in October. And they literally had this man on restriction. Like Representative Crane said, they wouldn't let him graduate with this platoon, and they held him over. And they had him literally, because he's not in a training command anymore, and he doesn't have a barracks, they literally had him sleeping on a cot for 2.5 months, going on 3 months, in a basketball gym, and they eating MREs. I mean, they wouldn't even let this guy go to get hot shower at the mess hall. So he reached out to me, and of course I reached out to retired Master Sergeant Jack Donut because he's Army and he knows Army, and I'm a Marine. So I reached out to him. I said, this doesn't smell right. So he did some checking for me, got me in touch with Lieutenant Colonel Pete Chambers, and then of course we got in touch with Colonel Jenkins, and then of course we had to get this man a lawyer. Major Wilson he's a retired Army major. He was also a JAG officer, and so we had to get him an attorney because here he is sitting around doing nothing, literally restricted to the barracks, the gym on a cot. I mean, that's all fine, good training, but this is beyond that. So his wife was pregnant, ready to have the baby. They wouldn't let him go home on leave. Major Wilson had to get involved. He could go home on leave, see his son being born, and he went back to the base, hoping that this thing would blow over and this would just get on with it. But they're trying to separate him out on EO violations. Now, this is what the EO violation started with. Because his screensaver on his cell phone, okay, had a picture, the same identical picture that is the official picture when President Trump was in office. The same photograph that sat in every command deck in the entire armed forces, plus every federal building. The same identical picture. It's his screensaver. So a black female trainee sees this picture and immediately says, Trump's a racist. And he says, no, he's not. Well, then you support Trump, you're a racist. So now that started the ball rolling where you're a racist. And then, of course, when an openly gay recruit made advances on him, he says, I'm married, leave me alone. I'm straight, and I'm a Christian, and I don't believe in that. So next thing you know, he's a homophobe. Well, the drill sergeant, who's a Hispanic female from East L.A., zeroes in on this guy, and why are you married to a white girl? And I mean, just crazy stuff like that. And of course, she brags that she's married to a black man. Well, congratulations. This is the problem we have here. Okay, as a retired Marine gunnery sergeant, okay, as senior staff NCO, you don't let especially recruits, you don't let your subordinates know about your personal life, and you definitely don't give them your personal opinion about politics or anything like that. You just stick to training. And if you make a mistake, you correct it on the spot. You don't wait 2 months and then the day before you're graduating, you get 3 privates in a room and say, everybody fill out this statement and this is what I want you to say. These recruits are going to say what the drill sergeant tells them to say because they're intimidated. So this is the kind of garbage. So the next thing you know, he's a white supremacist, he's a homophobe, and this garbage, and they're trying to out it and kick him out. Now this has been going on since October.
Hang on.
Yeah.
Okay, hang on for 1 second. Hang on 1 second. Crane, Eli, you went and talked to the command. You talked to the 2 guys in the chain of command that run the deal. I take it this is Fort Jackson. Sounds to me like Fort Jackson, right? So what's the deal? You talk to them. They know they got a problem there? Because they got a problem. Do they know they have a problem or admit they have a problem? The private doesn't have a problem. They got a problem. Do they know that and fess up to it?
Yeah, they said that they know that there's holes in the story, but they said there's still investigations going on. Unfortunately, I was told last week that the investigation would be wrapped up around Wednesday, Thursday at the latest, and a decision would be made. And here we are, Monday morning. There's no wrap-up of the investigation that I'm aware of. There's no decision being made. And more importantly, this private isn't being moved on to his next command so that he can serve this country. And, Steve, I want to tell you something. One of the things that was very indicative of this whole situation to me was when I talked to 4 of his peers, okay? I talked to 4 of his peers that spend all day, every day with this young man, and only one of them was white, Steve. The other 3 were not. And I asked them, is the private racist? No. Does he treat anybody differently because of the color of his skin? No. What's the deal with him? He's opinionated. Okay, that doesn't qualify separating this young man and kicking him out. I also asked all 4 of them, hey, do you think that this guy's being railroaded? All 4 of them said yes. So that told me right there after talking to his peers, this chain of command does have a problem. And that's why I went down there. That's why I asked you if I could come on your show and alert the American people to what's going on with this individual case, but more importantly, what's going on systematically within the bigger Department of Defense and our military.
This is systemic. This is why the Army and the military and the Navy, all of it, it's all messed up right now because when I was in, this stuff was not even, you didn't talk about anything like this. You not even part of the program. Get on with the business at hand, right?
Well, where do you think this leads?
I mean,
Steve, where do you think this leads? Where do you think this is going to lead to when many of our adversaries who are very dangerous and don't care about any of this stuff and all they care about is preparation and lethality? What do you think this leads to? You know what it leads to.
A military that can't fight.
It leads to us getting our tails whipped in a foreign conflict.
Exactly. So does the command understand that they have a problem and the investigation should be then? I assume that we're going to start a congressional investigation down there, and hopefully goes all the way up through Army Training Command. But it ought to include the Navy, the Marine Corps, Air Force, all of it. This is systemic. This private's just one small example of what's out there. Am I too far off base on that, Congressman Crane?
No, you're not, Steve. And I told him, I said, it's like, look, you need to move this young man onto his next training command. And if he's as bad as you say he is, then we all know what's going to happen at his next training command. But I said there's so many holes in this story and all these accusations that you do have a problem on your hand. And if I leave here, if I leave this base, and I believe that you're railroading this kid, and me and my friends up here, and Sonny Borelli's and the Wendy Rogers of the world, and Colonel Jenkins, there's a bunch of us that have eyes on this story, have talked to this young man, and are convinced that he's being railroaded. So yes, the Army does have a problem on its hand, and we're going to get really loud about it.
Hey, for a second, Counselor, we're going to hold you over. Gunny, we got about a minute. Any closing thoughts you've got in this situation? Because War Room is officially on it now, sir.
Good. I reached out to Representative Gosar to get this thing started with their congressional investigation and talked to get with the command. They were withholding this man's process for citizenship, by the way. So here's an immigrant, joins the Army, wants to become a citizen. He went through the training. They wouldn't let him take the test. He finally, Major Wilson got involved in that, and Colonel Jenkins, he finally takes the test, and the company commander was withholding the paperwork for him to get his final swearing in, which, thankfully he got sworn in as a U.S. citizen last Friday. They're withholding this man's mail, for God's sakes. They wouldn't let him go to church, wouldn't go to the PX. They're still taking away his cell phone. He's no longer in training. They're just holding him, and literally, this is flat out beyond just normal hazing. They're withholding his mail, which is a federal crime.
This is not hazing. This is not hazing. This is a struggle. This is Red Guard struggle session. Sonny, Gunny, what is your social media? Where do people get you?
Well, I'm not worried about me. You want to send me an email about this, my official government emails, because this is my constituent. It's just sborelli@azleg.gov.